Okay. Tweets are out. Yep, let's do it. So this is that other foursome of games you wanted to see, the foursome that comes after that opening foursome of LA Chargers, Buffalo, Philly, Kansas City. This foursome for the Miami Dolphins is for the AFC East title, is for playoff seeding, is for the franchise's first playoff victory in more than 20 years, and it's the most important four-game stretch of the Steve Ross era. What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Chris Perkins. I am your host, Chris Perkins, your Miami Dolphins columnist for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. That is Dave Hyde, your columnist for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. A special hello to our live viewers, especially those who keep the chat going and send in questions for us to answer during the show. To honor you today, we're going to pay special attention to your questions from the chat. We're going to have an extended period of answering those questions. So thanks as always for taking time out of your day to spend time with us. And as a reminder, you can always get this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. So let's look at our Dolphins. They are 10-4 for the first time since 2000 in the fight for the number one seed in the AFC. But they have a dangerous trio of games remaining. We're going to talk about the historical significance of these last three regular season games, and we're going to take a glimpse at that playoff game. Also, as we say goodbye to 2023, let's recognize this as the best calendar year in Dolphins history in about 2 decades. And finally, we're going to break down the Dallas game. That's going to be on Christmas Eve. On Sunday, we're going to make our predictions. That's a lot to examine. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So you had a column last week, a very well-written, well-thought-out column saying that it was the most important four-game stretch in a long time, starting with the Jets. I'm taking it from here and going to the playoffs, but however we divide that up, what did the Dolphins show you last week, and what do they need to continue to show you to reassure you that the path that they're on, the blank those picks, we're gonna go to free agency and pivot under Mike McDaniel and use speed and all that? Like, how important are these games to keeping down that path?
Well, first, Perk, I can't go any further without you just didn't even acknowledge my Christmas spirit here, my holiday spirit, you know. I mean, I got to acknowledge the silliness of that I'm looking like this. Okay, so let's do that. But, yeah, look, my thought coming into as the season went on was that these last three games would be the most important of the Steve Ross era. How they lost Tennessee, you know, and that collapse and everything. I threw the Jets game in there because, you know, I needed a column and that how they responded was going to be really interesting. And when you know, there was gloom and doom that week in Dolphin land when they're, oh, here we go again. They're a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. And they came out and look, they didn't even need the offense, really. The defense dominated the game. And really, it was a coaching matchup. You saw what the Dolphins did with problems on their offensive line and what the Jets did with problems on their offensive line. And it was it was a textbook lesson. Short passes initially by Tua, the first couple series. Of course, they were set up nicely too. And the Jets shockingly didn't blitz. They didn't try to, you know, just do what the Dolphins did, which was just crush the quarterback. And so, but the next three games, it's a nice gauntlet of good opponents, and really it's a little shocking, the schedule, the way it's set up. There hasn't been a lot of really good teams that they've played this year. You know, a lot of these teams, the Washingtons, the Carolinas, the New England, they've fallen to the wayside, and the Jets obviously, and now they got three teams that are coming on.
Yeah, they do that. And I mean, three teams that are really going to test them. And let's say hello to some of our people in the chat. Roger Allman, Malby Crazy, Pete's Takes, Judy Williams, Pretty Boy, Cat for Life, Ender Fireplays, YT, Stephen Bewley Jr. Welcome to everybody who's in our chat. Hyde, let me ask you this. Do you still consider that LA Chargers game a win? Because I do. I think the Chargers, they are a playoff team. This was the season opener on the road. We didn't know what the Chargers were going to devolve into. I guess we had a hint because of their head coach, Brandon Staley, who is now fired. But I consider that they were 1-3 in those first four tester games. You could say 0-3, but I give them credit for beating the Chargers. Then you lose to Buffalo, you lose to Philly, you lose to KC. We all know that they've got Dallas on Christmas Eve. They're at Baltimore on New Year's Eve. They're against Buffalo here on January 7th. What are you seeing in those games? I said last week I see the Dolphins in these three going 1-2, losing to Dallas, losing to Baltimore, and beating Buffalo. I'm going to stick with that. And I know they're going to get a lot of key players back, and that's not trying to be a Grinch. Nice Christmas hat, by the way, Dave Hyde. How about that? I'm not trying to be a...
Time to acknowledge that, Perk. Look, here's the scenario. The way it's shaping up, it just looks like what's going to happen is the Buffalo game, shockingly, could decide the AFC East. It could decide the playoff. I mean, if the Dolphins split these next two games, certainly not out of the realm. Nothing's out of the realm. They could win them both. They could lose them both. I mean, but just say they split for the sake of conversation here. Buffalo has two easy games, the Chargers and New England, and they're going to be 10 wins. The Dolphins, if they split, are 11 wins. That game, it's taking on it would take on a shocking amount of importance considering where these two teams were a month ago. And it's not really the Dolphins doing, it's what Buffalo's done. Buffalo has, by firing Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator, by McDermott taking, it seems like, more control. They did something last Sunday I've never seen them do against Dallas, and that's why it's important. Not only did Buffalo look dominant, they didn't even need Josh Allen. It was the first time I've seen Buffalo play a game where Josh Allen wasn't asked to carry the team. And carry that over to Dallas. How's Dallas going to react? We can get into that later. But to your point, these next three games, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
It is, and here's what I like about these next three games, and what I like in general about the NFL this year is that, I've said this before, all the top teams are wonderfully flawed, right? And so it makes for a great ending. So you take the Dolphins and you look at their record against top teams. It's not good. It's the same thing with Dallas, especially on the road with Dallas. That's their flaw. I think they have an 18-point difference between home and road. You look at Baltimore, they can't hold a lead, especially in the fourth quarter. You look at Buffalo, they've had some boneheaded losses, and Josh Allen can always lose the game for you. San Francisco, 3-game losing streak, they had one. Philly, 3-game losing streak. Detroit, they've never been there before. All of the top teams, I love it, and that's what, I think that the Dolphins could go 3-0. They could go 1-2. They could go 2-1. I don't think they could go 0-3 in this stretch. I think that's unrealistic. But anything can happen down this stretch because the league is so evenly matched and the top teams are so evenly matched. Do you see it that way?
Well, here's the interesting thing. Here's what I'm looking at in December is you rarely see a team lose like Dallas did to Buffalo that goes on and does something special. I looked at last 10 Super Bowl champions. None of them have lost double digits in the last month of the season. And that's what Dallas, usually you're coming on, right? And so the San Francisco, to me, has separated themselves from everybody in the league right now, which really doesn't matter to the Dolphins as far as getting to the Super Bowl. But here comes Dallas, and what you don't want is, Pat Riley made my thinking on this. He goes, look, you're going to lose close games. The problem, if the problem comes when you start losing in basketball, he's saying double-digit 20-point games, you get blown out, you got a problem on the team. And Dallas, the question becomes, do they have a problem? The Dolphins collapsed in the final minutes in bizarre fashion against Tennessee and righted their ship last weekend. To me, Perk, it's not a question of the Dolphins beating good teams. It's compound that with they're losing them away from Hard Rock Stadium. Okay, Philadelphia on the road, Kansas City in Germany, Buffalo in Buffalo. It underlines how important these next games are to get the home field advantage.
Yeah, they are. And then look, I think that's the biggest thing to me is the playoff seeding, and I think that's what the Dolphins are going to have to really be playing for here, as far as you don't want to leave Hard Rock Stadium. I know that the AFC East title is nice, and that comes with playoff seeding and getting the home game. I think playoff seeding is and getting the home game is really, to me, that's the number one thing.
They need 12 wins. They need 12 wins, no matter how you cut this, really, to get that. I mean, to keep Buffalo away from them, right? They're going to need 12 wins. They're going to win 2 of these 3, the next 3, and everything will work out good for them. Right.
I agree. Judy Williams says you probably can't pick a tougher trio of games, not including the 49ers. Might be right, but here's the thing and here's the thing about the Dolphins is that you've got to show me. I know that this team has a lot of accolades and a lot of stats, but I don't give flowers very easily. That's why I'm not on the Dallas bandwagon. It's why I'm still on the San Francisco and Philly and Kansas City bandwagons, Hyde. That I know what these teams can do based on last year and maybe the last couple of years. Dallas and Detroit and Miami, Jacksonville, I haven't seen you do it yet. And so to me, I think the Dolphins also have to prove that to themselves. That I told you earlier in the season, Deshaun Elliott told me before they went to Kansas City, before they went to Germany, he said, I know we haven't beaten any good teams yet. And I know what Mike McDaniel told them to tell reporters to F off if we ask about that this week. But to me, that is a big topic that you in these last 3 games, you've got to show me that you can beat a quality team. And look, Dallas has this kind of the same thing, right? They've got to show that they can beat a quality team on the road. Everybody has kind of got their thing. And again, that's what I like. But I can't give the Dolphins that much credit until they show me they can beat good teams.
Or then you're going to wait till if they beat Dallas and then you give them credit and this. Okay.
Step by step, because they've lost 3. They've lost 3 of those such games already this year. So I can't give them everything back in one game, right? It's like everything that they had gained with. I didn't take stuff away from them with the Tennessee loss either, because it's just one game. It's your antenna goes up, but I don't look at that Tennessee loss and all of a sudden say, it's the same old Dolphins. They're going to have a bad December. It takes more than one game.
Well, my theory on NFL season, you throw out 1 loss and 1 win that is the outlier. The Denver 70-point game, especially, Denver's actually the best team they've beaten this year. Which, if you go by the records of December, they're 7-7. Okay, so that kind of underlines your point. Okay, they do need. It'd be nice to have a good win on their wall here. The last winning team they beat that ended with a winning record would have been Buffalo a year ago in September, when that Heat game where Buffalo lost 46 players and to the Heat. And that's a valid point. And look, McDaniel underlined it's a valid point by saying, don't answer the question. Don't answer the question.
Exactly.
They know it's a topic. It's a narrative. Okay.
Right.
But I think this is a different team because the defense is entirely different than a year ago.
Going out to the text line, a couple of things here for your thoughts, Hyde. From Cap for Life, keep protecting the ball and we'll be fine, in my opinion. And then from Russell, Miami's biggest concern for me, surprise, surprise, it's the O-line. Protecting, they might be, I've got to look, they might be even in turnover margin now. They beat, they were 4-0 last week. So I always look at that. That's a key stat. I think Kansas City is like -6 or something like that. So keep protecting the ball. I agree. And then the O-line being the biggest concern. Yeah, it is. The secondary really showed me something last week. And the more I think about it, for my column on Sunday, I should have written Jalen Waddle and Jalen Ramsey. The job Jalen Ramsey did on Garrett Wilson was just textbook, just shutting that guy down, and Jalen Waddle came through. So, yeah, the secondary could have been a huge concern, missing 3 or 4 starters, but I think Russell is right. It's the O-line, but the O-line is doing a good job. When you get down to like number 7 and number 8 and number 9, as far as, you have your starting 5 and you're on your 4th, second stringer, you can't ask for very much. I think the O-line is doing a good job, but Russell is right. It remains my main concern, but it's not as high alert as it was last year or would have been in past years.
Yeah, in Dallas, Zach Martin was pulled out of the Buffalo game. There's question if he's their best lineman, maybe their best talent on offense. So, look, every team has injury problems. The Jets had injury problems. They're playing with a third-string right tackle, a quarterback who won't even be on the team. They don't want him on the team, and a backup, another backup guard. So, I mean, the mistake is just looking at the problems on your team. And they have to change some things with the 3 offensive linemen. And you saw McDaniel come out. He talked about after, and Tua talked about afterwards, they wanted to see how the defense set up without Tyreek Hill on the field, the Jets defense, how it set up without Tyreek Hill. And the unstated thing was with this line and the shape it was. So they threw quick pass. And then they saw the Jets, they're not blitzing. They're not doing anything, but they're not even, doing any games or anything up front. They're just coming on. So then they threw the deep pass to Waddle. Then they figured they have time. So that was good coaching. Okay. And they're going to have to do some things differently. Their running game really a lot. You saw it a lot more vertical. Was that because a chain was in the game and they're running up the middle more? But I think that's in part because the 3 guys inside are stronger and maybe not as agile and are better at blocking straight forward. And so you'll see adjustments like that as this goes on. But the question is how can the middle of the line hold up against? And Dallas, by the way, they're 3rd in the league in takeaway turnover differential. So they're very good at turning the ball over and protecting the ball.
From Raphael Courtwright, do the Dolphins give fans a lump of coal again this year? I say there's no way. I still think they're going to win a playoff game. I don't know how they're going to finish in these next 3. I think 1 and 2, they will win a playoff game.
Is that the bar, Perk? Is that the bar, win a play? They have sacrificed this. They've got, as I wrote last week, they put 5 seasons into this finish right here. 5 seasons from the tank of 2019 to rebuild in 20 and 21 to McDaniel's system and all that. And 5 years. So 1 playoff win and you're happy. Oh, this is great. That's the bar.
What's the bar? What's the bar?
It should be. Look, I don't know, going to the Super Bowl, but at least playing to go to the Super Bowl, not just saying, no, we won 1 playoff game. They could have done that by doing none of this. They've done that before. Well, not won a playoff game, but been in a playoff game.
Right. Look, that was my bar at the start of the season. I've still got to see it from this team. I really do, and I know what they've done. 10-4 and the home record and everything. But I've got to, again, these 3 games. If they're impressive in these 3 games, Dave, then I can readjust. But right now, for the most part, this team has done what's been expected of them this season. I know nobody expected them to score 70 against Denver, but Tyreek, Tua, Waddle, McDaniel, Mostert has overachieved, but Wilkins, Sealer, Ramsey. I mean, it's been within the realm of believability. Even if Tyreek gets 2,000, it's not like he got 2,500, or right. I mean, that's how I see things right now.
This team has talent to go beyond one playoff win. That's all I'm saying. They're built. What they've invested to get here, it better be more than one playoff game. Okay, if that's the bar, that's not going to. So I think they need to go further. But to stick on this Sunday and really out through the regular season, they need to win 2 games. They need to win 2 games, 2 out of 3 to get right for the playoffs.
I would agree. How about this from Stephen Bewley Jr.? We saw how much Dallas is struggling with linebacker play. Run this week. We know Leighton Vander Esch, Dallas's all-pro linebacker, has been out for a while with a neck injury. The Dolphins, I think they rushed for 77 yards last week. It wasn't that great, but they've been running the ball very effectively, very well. Mostert, number 2 in the league. We'll see what Achane has left. We'll see what happens with Chris Brooks. Somebody asked that earlier on the chat. I expect that he's going to be activated on tomorrow or today. Today is the 21-day window to activate him, and he could certainly help in short yardage situations and just in other situations out there. So I would agree, run, but don't forget Tyreek.
Let's be careful when we say, "Oh, run the ball." Buffalo has the team to run the ball. Okay. Yeah. The Dolphins, the defense, they ran the ball for 150 yards against Tennessee because Tennessee was playing. They were playing a safety at linebacker. Okay, in the actual linebacker position, they said run the ball. We're worried about your passing game, and that's how most defenses, smart defenses, anyways, have set up against the Dolphins. Washington didn't, and you saw what happened. Okay, and so, when you say run the ball, that's predicated on the Cowboys playing the pass because they're not a power running team. They're a speed running team, and maybe they can run the ball on. Maybe Buffalo showed something, exposed something about Dallas more than in ways that went beyond what other teams have done. But the Dolphins haven't shown to be we're a run first team.
Yeah, they have not, and they're not a run first team. But I think that if they shifted their strategy, if that works good for Dallas, works well for the Dolphins against Dallas, and they shift that strategy, I think that would be a wise move. At least they have the choice and the ability to do that this year. Last year,
do they have the ability? They have 3 interior linemen playing, as backups. Okay. So, what I would say, let's go out and see if we can run the ball. Okay. But it's not a run first team. It hasn't been all year. In games like Tennessee, McDaniel's smart enough and fluid enough in his thinking to say, okay, we're running the ball pretty well. Let's keep running the ball. And he didn't run it enough down by the goal line, as has been loudly pointed out. So go in with the idea, okay, we want to run the ball more, but it's not a run-first offense.
No, it's not. It's not. But I think that you were in a better position to have a 1-week pivot than you were last year. But you're right. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Hey, how about this one, Hyde? Because I want to talk a little Christian Wilkins, and I just lost it. But somebody said if Wilkins wants that bag, he's got to be a factor the rest of the way. There it is from Troy. If Wilson wants that bag, he needs to be a game wrecker in every game remaining. I think Christian Wilkins, probably has been your best defensive player so far. I know Jalen Ramsey is your most talented, but he wasn't there for most of the season. Chubb has come on strong. Wilkins started off slow, and probably because of that hold in that he did in training camp. But the job that Wilkins has done, I think the guy has been a game wrecker. and he deserves to get that bag, although he's probably not going to get the 20 million that he wants, 20 million a year. But Christian Wilkins, your thoughts and his money.
Well, look, I don't know how you separate the defensive line by individuals, what they did last week against the Jets. The whole defensive line wrecked. They took over the game from the first Jets possession. Christian Wilkins, what's he up to? 8.5 sacks?
I'm like 7.5 or 8.5. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah. And that was the question about, he needs to have more sacks. Well, he's got more sacks. The market for top-notch defensive linemen is 20 to 24 million, depending on where you go with it. And so, I don't know what more. He's played every year. He adds an element to his game, and he gets better every year. I guess the question would be, and the Dolphins have a lot of tough decisions to make on contracts coming up.
Yeah.
And so how do you parcel out that money? Austin Jackson, that was a pretty good, I thought, a team-friendly deal to get a starting right tackle for 3 years, $36 million. And Zach Sealer, great signing, didn't break the bank. But a few of these are going to break the bank if you Christian Wilkins being one decision.
They are, Hyde, and that definitely leads us into our next segment. You're such a pro, Hyde. You mentioned those contracts. This has been the best calendar year for the Dolphins in about 2 decades, right? And I want to give a salute 2023 when you consider that, Mike McDaniel has kept interest and optimism high all year. The year starts off, the calendar year, by the Dolphins making the playoffs. 34-31 loss at Buffalo, but they made the playoffs, delivering on some promise in the face of a 5-game losing streak. They kept that momentum going by getting Fangio and Ramsey. The draft was largely irrelevant. Free agency was largely irrelevant after Jalen Ramsey. But you start off the season hot. You're 8-3, I believe, at the bye, right? And now you're 10-4, going for the number 1 seed. I think it's the best calendar year, not season, the best calendar year since sometime in the early 2000s, right? When we had Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas and that kind of optimism. What are you're frowning, Hyde? What do you think of 2023?
No, I'm not. Look, the competition isn't much. Okay, going back, Dave Wanstad's first year they went 11-5, made the playoffs. That was Ricky. Ricky and a great defense and what Jimmy left as far as 4 young Pro Bowl players on defense. But other than that, they've had cameo appearances 2008, 2016. So look, this is by far the best season they've had, and I think you'd have to go back to me as far as talent level, what they should be able to do. Yet in '92 they went to the AFC championship game and got blown out by Buffalo. But this is the talent level is higher than anything they've had when you look at what they got on both sides of the ball.
I agree. And kind of to blend the 2023 with what's coming up against Dallas, you mentioned signing Austin Jackson to the contract. Miami Kid Jay writes, keys to the game is to double Micah Parsons at all times and spread those linebackers out and make them cover. Do you guys agree? They one of the sayings in football is 4 hands on them, right? Double team them. You're going to need 4 hands on Micah Parsons, and he'll primarily be lined up against Austin Jackson, although they'll probably move him around a little bit to see what he can get on Armstead, and especially if Armstead leaves the game. But it's primarily going to be the Austin Jackson, Micah Parsons matchup, and 4 hands on them, but the Dolphins don't do that a lot. The running back will chip and the tight end will do some kind of, but it's usually 5 men blocking, everybody else out in the pattern, and Tua gets that ball out really quickly. So I'm not sure that doubling Micah Parsons is going to be a major part of the game. It might just be a change up in the gameplay.
Yeah, I think the big is, does Tyreek come back? All of a sudden, you got 2 guys who can get open within a second off the line of scrimmage, okay? And when they face big rushes, the best thing he does is get rid of the ball quickly. And that neutralize, it tries to take the rush out. McDaniel's very smart about not putting Tua in harm's way. In the games where Tua and the offense has been in trouble, Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Tennessee, there's a pass rush coming at him, and he either has to hold on the ball longer than he wanted because some coverage concerns, or he's moved off a spot, which is trouble too, and the rush gets to him. So to me, the key is him getting rid of the ball, which means they've come up with some, strategic way for Hill and Waddle, especially to use their speed right off the line, get open, and he has the quickest average release in the league this year at 2.17 seconds against I think it was against the Jets up there when they were facing what everybody feared was a great Jets defense. Now I think the Jets laid down Sunday. I think that defense had enough. They said we're tired of the season, and so did the offense for that matter. Robert Saleh, one of the great things, he's been given a hall pass this whole year. Oh, Aaron Rodgers went out. Okay, we're done. And everybody, oh yeah, they're done. They have no chance. So okay, you can play it that way if you want.
Yeah, I agree. Saleh, that defense, I don't want to say that they're not playing up to their potential because it's been a trying circumstance there, but wow, I thought the defense was going to have a little more fight in them than what they showed. And by the way, Christian Wilkins has 8 sacks this season, thanks to Judy and a couple others. And speaking of Judy, and we're talking about this calendar year, Judy says, I hope the injuries don't sabotage the season. I'll say this, Hyde. I really want to give credit again to Mike McDaniel. I think they've been very smart about how they've handled the injury situation. They haven't rushed guys back. I think they learned a valuable lesson with Connor Williams. They let him come back, from that hamstring injury, and then he ends up having to go out for 3 more games earlier in the season. So we've seen them cautious with Armstead. We've seen them cautious with Waddle, with everybody.
The Robert Hunt one didn't work out. That was costly, putting him in there, and he re-injured his hamstring. And but some of it has worked to the Dolphins' favor. Brandon Jones got in there. He played as good a game at safety. Even take away his 2 interceptions. And again, I get it's the Jets' offense, okay, and all that stuff. But okay, now you got 3 safeties really you can count on. And Brandon, it's been a weird year for Brandon Jones, injured last year and coming back, he loses his starting job. But now if somebody gets hurt in the back end, I think you're ready. And so, look, every team's got injuries, and I get we pay attention to the Dolphins because that's who we are. But the Jets season was ruined by an injury. The Dolphins season shouldn't be ruined by an injury.
Right. Here's something from One-Eyed Jack 233. What's the plan if Jackson can't go? Austin Jackson has the oblique. Lamb at right tackle and give him help for Parsons. Well, Mike McDaniel said yesterday he doesn't think the Austin Jackson thing is that bad. It's not as bad as the oblique injury that kept Jalen Phillips out for weeks earlier this season. So I'm expecting that Austin Jackson is going to be okay and that he's going to be able to play. Staying on the offensive line, Raphael Courtwright says, I don't understand our GM. Connor Williams goes down. We cut the undrafted agent center, that's Alama Uluabe, who has been on practice squad for a while, yet we sign players off the couch. Why waste all that time? I'll say this. I think they've done a good job planning, and the depth has been very good this season. Center is one that I could agree with you, Raphael, but here's how I look at it. They went into camp, they assigned Dan Feeney from the Jets, giving him the $3 million bonus. He didn't work out. They traded him to the Bears. And so that left them with Connor Williams and then a collection of guys who had never played center, who only played in OTAs and minicamp when Connor Williams was holding out. That was Liam Eichenberg, Lester Connor, and Robert Jones. Liam ended up having to play in the Denver game for the first time in his career while Uluabe stayed on practice squad. So basically, you're correct. They did not replace that that backup center job, and now they got bitten in the butt a little bit. It worked out with Eichenberg, but they've done everything else on that offensive line at both guards and both tackles. You can't protect everything, so I'm going to give them a pass on this one. The offensive line has worked out. Hyde, your thoughts on the Connor Williams situation or just offensive line in general?
I mean, you're talking the third center. I mean, so that's break the glass emergency, and there's you got to have somebody, obviously, but you know, I'm not going to go there, and you know, I think you look at the job Chris Greer's done on the offensive line, and McDaniel and line coaches, obviously. It's been as good a situation as you could have hoped for as far as depth in you know. Kendall Lamb on left tackle has played very serviceably as a backup left tackle. You know, it hasn't been a real problem like it was last year. And really, to me, okay, you lost Connor Williams, you know, your best regular lineman of the year, because he hadn't been hurt to that point. The question to me moving forward is you're asking Teron Armstead to play 7 straight games without an injury. And that's, you got to cross your fingers on. Okay. You got to cross your fingers because you're going to be going against, as the season goes on and you get deeper, hopefully you get deeper in the playoff, you're going to be going against better and better pass rushes. And so that's one that I'd be crossing my fingers on moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know what? I told Teron after the game in the locker room, I just said respect, because the way he keeps going out there, and I thought he was going to leave the game a couple of times last week, and he just kind of smiled and shook his head and said, I'm just going to keep riding it till the wheels fall off. I have so much respect for that dude, man, because I don't know how he's doing it. I really don't. Well,
everybody respects him, and you can't talk to him and not like him. I mean, he's a pro's pro.
He is.
The question is, do you know how much faith do you have that he can play 7 straight games? That's you know, if you're so.
Yeah, I agree. Zero, and I really like and respect him, but 7 games in a row, I just don't see it. To Miami kid Jay, any updates on Javon Holland? Mike McDaniel said yesterday he's day to day. We're going to see, and that's a big one. But again, I think that they managed all these injuries very well. And to wrap up the segment here on 2023, the calendar year, we're going to see in these last 3 games. But I think the management plan with Javon Holland, Rob Hunt, Xavier Howard, these guys, Tyreek Hill, I think it's going to pay off in these last 3 games because the team will be as healthy as possible as opposed to last year when they really limped into the playoffs. So I think it's going to pay off. And speaking of these last 3, Hyde, it is prediction time, baby. It is Dolphins, Cowboys, Hard Rock Stadium on Sunday, Christmas Eve. Who you got? I'm going to give it to you first, Hyde.
Well, there's a lot of mirror images here. You got the top 2 scoring offenses in the league. You have 2 teams that are very good at home and not so good away from home. And to me, that's the difference right now. And the wild card is sort of like how the Dolphins react to Tennessee. Well, they had a bad Jets team, but they reacted perfectly the way you'd want them. How's Dallas going to react to that butt kicking in Buffalo? You know, how's that going to shape who they are coming into this Sunday? But I'm going with the Dolphins from home and what I've seen all season. Get that win against a winning team, Perk. Shut Perkins up right now. So, right? Is that what we're going to do? So I'd say, 30-23 or something like that.
All right. Well, you know what? You're right about that. I mean, this is almost like the Spider-Man meme in a sense, right? Dallas and Miami looking at each other in the mirror. They're both, and I think Miami is the number 5 defense, and Dallas might be the number 6 defense also. Yeah. So they are kind of like looking in the mirror. I am going Cowboys 27, Dolphins 24. And I am the guy that Mike McDaniel is telling his players, tell them to shut the F up. I'm that guy. I'm not trying to be contrarian. I just have to see it. And look, we'll see how the Cowboys come off of this loss. I think turnovers are going to be the difference in this game, and I think Dallas is going to be able to capitalize a little bit more than the Dolphins. But I do see this as a very, very tight game the whole way. I don't think anybody takes a 2-touchdown lead or anything like that. So. We're going to see what happens here. And also, look, I'll say this. And I do think that turnovers are the difference. I don't think Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb has a huge day. I think Tyreek Hill remains unstoppable. By the way, if he gets the 2,000 this year, we can say that he did it in 16 games, right? Because he already missed a game. So he can't, the 17 that Calvin Johnson, people have talked about, that's out. But, I do think that the Micah Parsons-Austin Jackson matchup is going to be one of the huge, huge keys to the game. But I think that I think really it's going to be turnovers, and I think the Dolphins are going to make one too many, and that's going to be the difference. So that's what I think.
You're setting up a nightmare scenario for the Dolphins. They lose that one, and I really think they need to win 2 or 3. Because then they got to beat the Ravens and they got to beat Buffalo here. That's so tough. That just underlines how tough the stretch is.
Yeah. Roger Allman has Miami 28-21. Let's see. Troy has Spins 31-21. Pete's takes Dallas wins. Tua fumbles the bag on the last 3. Book it. 38-7. Let's see, Hooked Up Joe, 30-24, Dolphins win. I figured I was going to be the only person to pick the Cowboys here. Let me ask you this, Hyde. What do you think about Mike McDaniel as a coach? I wrote a column saying, is Mike McDaniel a good coach? We're about to find out. I really like Mike McDaniel. I think he's different. He's a breath of fresh air. We both said that. But I think he's kind of in the spot right now with me where this team is that he's improved. He's a better coach than he was last year. To call him a good coach right now, I think is a little bit premature. I like the direction he's taking, that they're running the ball more. He knows how to take advantage of Tua and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. He knew to bring in Vic Fangio. I like everything. I've got to see results. What do you think about McDaniel as a coach?
When you say coach, I mean, first of all, as running the offense, Kyle Shanahan is the top of the league. Andy Reid's top of the league. McDaniel, though, is in that second tier. They've just done it more, improved. They've been there and gone a lot further. McDaniel in his second year, he's right there for creative. They have the number one scoring offense. I don't know how he could. So running the offense well. Now, other coaches haven't done. He brought in a guy in Vic Fangio who has many more credentials than he does. And if the season went south early, people would be, hey, make Vic Fangio the head coach. Or if they go out bad this year, they'll be clamoring for that. So that was a smart move, and it was, an obvious move in some regard in that he can hand off that. But look, if he wins out, he's a great coach. If he loses and struggles, it's all result based, and we're at that point of year where it could go either way, and opinions will be made up and all that. But look, I love what he's done. I not sure anybody could have come in or you'd want. You know what? It's telling when we go to Washington and the reporters there are saying the Dolphins or the Washington team needs to find a guy like Mike McDaniel. Okay. We go to Carolina, or Carolina comes in here and they're saying their offense is a mess. They're about to fire their coach, or I can't remember if he was fired when he was here, or Frank Wright by that. We need to find a mind like Mike McDaniel. It tells you how he's thought of for running the offense. Now, head coach, we're going to see in the next few games.
Yep. How about this? Stephen Bewley Jr., 31-24, Miami. Let's see. Did I say? Oh, Miami Kid J. Cowboys 30, Dolphins 23. Tua will struggle. What do you think of that? What do you? I mean, the Cowboys winning and Tua struggling. Let's not put bad stuff out there.
If you're saying the Cowboys, if you're predicting the Cowboys are going to win, an obvious thing would be, okay, they get to Tua, the pass rush, they make him struggle. And he's had good defenses. Have the Kansas Cities, the Philadelphias. He hasn't been on as good as he is carving up other teams. And that goes across the board too. The offensive line hasn't been good as protecting, but. The difference to me and the Dolphins where they are right now is that they have a top defense. And I know they collapsed in the final few minutes against Tennessee, but to me that was easily fixable, and so, okay, here comes a top offense, and we'll see how this matches up.
Yeah, and I think I messed up Pete's takes. He said Dallas wins. Tua fumbles the bag on the last three. Book it 38-7. That's an ugly one. How about these last couple here before we get out of here? Hyde, Pretty Boy, one of our regulars. If we get that 1 seed, McDrip should be considered for Coach of the Year, especially with all of these injuries. And then somebody else, and Hooked Up Joe says Greer is on the short list for Executive of the Year. Now, you've been around here for 20 years. Can you imagine if the Dolphins went Executive of the Year, Coach of the Year after the guys that we've seen around here?
And MVP and Tyreek Hill. Look, all of these goodies are on the table right now, right?
Yeah.
And they're there to be won, or they're there to be. What's going to happen if they lose to Dallas? Oh my God, here it goes again. So I mean. What do you want me to say? I don't know what's going to happen. But if they win out, if they get the number 1 seed, Chris Greer has a great case for Executive of the Year, McDaniel for Coach of the Year, Tyreek Hill probably, or Tua if you want to go that route for MVP of the Year. I mean, there's awards to be won in great seasons.
We'll give the last word here to El Hibaro, 31-7. Dolphins sweep Hill with the record, and Dolphins sweep Hill with the record and media. So he's got my mouth zipped shut on that one. So hopefully, I'm hoping that the Dolphins do win. I want this momentum to continue. I love the good vibes, love coming on the show, and everybody's in a good mood. Thanks to everybody in the chat, as always. Thanks to Dave Hyde. I'm Chris Perkins. You are watching
You're the
Dolphins.
Grinch, Perk. You're the Grinch that's trying to steal Christmas Eve from the Dolphins. Aren't you?
I'm not. Happy holidays to everybody. How's that? Look at Dave Hyde's hat. We're happy here. We'll see you next week, noon, sunsentinel.com.